Oh,
I've done that.
okay. Let me say again. I still can share host disabled participant screen sharing.
I think Samad, hello Samad, are you the host?
Yeah.
You also.
Okay.
Sure.
I can share now. Thank you for that. So please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so okay, great. Good morning once again, everybody, and welcome to today's session. So we're in today is session 2 of our course on data analysis with Power BI. And the last session that was yesterday, we had a general introduction into analysis. We looked at the categories of analysis. We looked at Power BI as a tool for analysis and what are the products that we have in the Power BI ecosystem. And we also looked at the building blocks of Power BI. To some extent, we're able to explore the Power Query interface, and we connected to a variety of sources. We saw how to connect to an Excel workbook. We also saw how to connect to the web, and we saw how to connect to a folder. So that was where we stopped yesterday. So I just want to quickly pick it up from there. Today, essentially, we're meant to look at data transformation as a whole. What are the guiding principles as to transforming our data? Because in real life scenario, most of the time, we would not have our data already transformed. We'll have dirtiness within our data, untidiness within our data, and those will require some attention from us before we can have a proper analysis run on top of them. But before I go into that, I just want to show us something very quickly, which is consequent to our connection to a folder yesterday, the Excel dump, if you remember. And so like I mentioned yesterday, that if you're to build a solution that will be feeding from a folder, which is usually what you would prescribe to some of the clients, most especially when they have a file or a set of files that are structured the same way that they use for their reporting month in, month out, like the situation that we saw yesterday. So we have our data now. We have our data on this model. So this is the Excel dump, and we have 4,266 rows on this data set. So if I just build something very quickly here, I just want to add something onto a card. So I'll put this here. So the total revenue at this point is 97.6 billion. That's the total revenue. And duplicate this card. And so I want to put in, let me put in, okay, let me just, okay, let me put in this again. But what I would do is I would ask it to count instead. Okay, so we have this. This is the total number of transactions that we have, 41,200 and what did we see here? 266. So that is what we have here. So this is the total number of transactions. the moment. And this is the total number. This is our to have IT downloads. But the last month that we have here is, I think this is October. Okay, there's October 2014, there's October 2015. Okay, I think it's complete down to December 2014, but for 2015, the last month. Okay, I think I have December 2015 here. This is complete as well. Okay, so this is what I would do. Let me just come to the IT download here. I will try and rename this file so that we just see how this will play out. So I'll rename this to 2016. I'll rename this guy also to 2016. And then I'll rename this guy also to 2016. Renaming the file outside does not impact what is in there. So we'll still have 2015 data in there, but I just want this to strike a difference when we do. So what we'll do normally is, so these are the new files that we got, the 2016 files, and we need to add this to our report. So what we'll do is, we'll just need to copy these 3 new files, come to the folder that we connected to. The Excel dump is the folder that our Power BI file is feeding from. So I'll come here and paste this here. So I just pasted this here, December 2016, November 2016, October 2016. Once you have pasted it here, your work is done. So you just come back to your Power BI reports. Let's keep an eye on these values. Then I'll come here to refresh. So when I refresh, Power BI would establish connection back again to our source, which is our Excel dump. It will rerun the entire queries that we ran in our Power Query editor, and then we'll pull in whatever values that we're meant to have. So keep an eye on these figures. These figures would update now. So now we have 110 billion, we have 46,000 rows. So that is how to connect to a folder, and the benefit it gives to you is that whatever new files that you have, you just add them back into that folder and you go on to refresh your report. So you don't need to ultimately rebuild whatever report you are rebuilding. Once you do it once and you have done it perfectly and accurately, what you need to do subsequently is to go into whatever folder you have connected to, and then you add the new files to it. And another thing to this is that even if you are just starting to create that report this month, but you'll observe that the reports would continue till only God knows. And it's something that you'll keep getting that same file from, maybe it's from the IT or you keep downloading it from the ERP system or somewhere. For the very first month, connect to the folder instead. Don't connect to the server. And your report should be, you refresh your report and then it should pick whatever new files you have there. But bear in mind that whenever you are doing this sort of consolidation, it has to be that the file structures are the same. If the file structures are not the same, you begin to experience some anomalies. So you need to ensure that the structures are the same and the structures are consistent. So that is how to work with folders. So let's get back to this now. So I'll put up my slide now, and then I want us to just quickly talk about this briefly before I share the file that we'll be making use of. All right, so today we want to look at getting started with data preparation. When we talk about the life cycle of creating reports, essentially, there are 3 things you'll be doing practically, 3 things, which every other thing that you might be doing would come under it. They will come as a sub under this. The very first thing is that you'll be preparing your data. For most of the time, your data is unstructured. the data is not clean. So you need to prepare it. You need to make it analysis ready before you can go on to now start building reports on top of it. After you have prepared your data, the very next thing you would want to do is to do what is called data modeling. We spoke a bit about that yesterday. And after then, you now talk about your data visualization. So after visualization, essentially everything you still do, publishing, managing, all of those would stem from your visualization. So visualization is more like the parent for whatever thing would come after it. So today we'll be starting with data preparation properly. One of the things that we need to know, we need to be aware of whenever we want to prepare our data, and what are the precursors as to our data needing some sort of preparation. When we talk about the data structure and data management, it is just a set of guides as to how is our data meant to be before we can go on to analyze. It doesn't mean that if our data does not follow these rules, we can't analyze. Yes, we can, but would have so much issues when we are analyzing. And it will impact our reports being automatable. You will not be able to automate your report if your data is not structured in this set of ways or manners that I'm going to explain to us. So this implies that if you're working with somebody or you see someone who is an analyst and he has his data not following this set of rules, just know that that individual will keep repeating the same analysis day in, day out, because of the fact that some things that he should have been able to automate within his report, he would not be able to achieve them because of the way his data is structured. And because of the way his data is structured, he will suffer so much when he tries to do some calculation. So he will be writing some very complex calculation just to drag or just to arrive at what he wants to achieve, because he did not pay attention to the structure of his data. So if his data is properly structured, then you would have so much ease in creating your report. You would have so much ease in doing your calculations with DAX, and a whole lot of other things will come in just handy for you. So the very first thing is you must pay attention to the structure of our data. So what then are the rules? We have a set of rules are not cast inside of this data set, and try to substantiate whatever challenge. Try as much as possible to use this as a guide. You have a data set, whatever rule has been broken by the data set. Once you're able to figure that out, you know almost immediately what you're meant to fix about that data set. And once you are clear about what you're going to fix about the data set, you can go on to fix that in Power Query. And once those all are resolved, then you're good to go. Rule number one, please, you can take some notes if that is necessary. Rule number one is saying that you shouldn't have empty columns within your data. No empty columns within your data. So I'll bring up a data set so that I can use that to exemplify this. Just a moment. So do historical sales. Okay, so I have this here. So I'll be switching between this data set and my slide. All right. So I have this here. Rule number one again says no empty columns. What does no empty column mean? We have this our data set here. This is our data set, which has a number of columns. So we have 10 columns and we have 30,800 rows on this data set. What no empty column is saying is that we shouldn't have something like this within our data. We have a column for region, we have a column for market, we have a column for store, then we have a completely empty column here. Top to bottom is empty. So if you want to check whether a column is completely empty, you can stay at the top and then you do control down arrow If it takes you down to the last row in Excel, it means that that column is completely empty. So if it takes you down, if I stay on this column C, which is the store column, and I do Control down, it should take me to the last cell that has some data on that column. It means that there are no gaps within this column. So this one, if I go to the top, I go down, it's just straight down, no obstruction, then it means that this is completely empty. We shouldn't have something like this in our data set, because Power Query would not automatically remove this for you. What Power Query would do is that it will fill it down with nulls. Everything that's empty here, Power Query will fill everything with nulls and will give your column a name. And when you start to do your analysis, if for whatever reason you want to count your columns, or you want to do some sort of things that would need you to put all columns into consideration, then it means that you have inflated the number of your columns by 1, and that would impact your calculations. So, and secondly is that because this is a completely empty column that has no data, but Power Query will recognize it and pull it into your Power BI with nulls all through, you would have increased your data file size by, this is 30,800 cells. So which means this is not something you would want to do, even from the performance of your report's perspective, the size of your report. You don't want to do this. So the very first thing you need to look out for is there empty columns within my data? And within the data, we mean from the length and breadth of your data, from the breadth of your data, left to right, you need to ensure that there is nothing completely empty in between. That is rule number 1. Rule number 2 is saying that we shouldn't have empty rows. No empty rows. Don't have empty rows within your data. The same implication as to you having empty columns applies. Come here, search right here, completely empty rows, left to right, within our data. Okay, that is rule number 2. Rule number 3 says that all your dates must be in a single column. I will rephrase this to say that all related dates must be in a single column. What do I mean by this? I'm here now. I'm here on this file. This is my trade date. This was a date for all our transactions. What we should have on our data set is that all these dates must be all in the same column. I shouldn't have some portions of these dates. I shouldn't have them recorded here. And maybe some portions of these dates, have them somewhere here. It shouldn't happen in our data set. Our dates must not be scattered, because for whatever report you are creating, your date forms a critical part of that report, and your date must be in a single column. We'll see the importance of that when we get to data modeling. So your date must be in a single column. And the reason why I mentioned that your date, related date must be in the single column is that it's very possible that in the business, they record 2 or 3 kinds of dates. They might be having transaction dates as such. Then they are having shipping dates. And then maybe they are having something like delivery dates. So what this rule is saying is that anything transaction date must be in the same column. Anything shipping date must be in the same column, and anything delivery date must be in the same column. We shouldn't have a situation whereby you have your transaction dates. Some of them are now under shipping dates, Some of them are now under delivery dates. You shouldn't have a situation like that. When we are looking at the shipping date column, it should be that the only set of dates that we are seeing on that column were the dates that this product or these transactions were shipped. And when we are looking at the delivery column, the delivery dates column, it should be that the dates that we can see on the delivery date column, they were the dates that those transactions were delivered. So that is what this means, because when we get to report, it's possible that you want to report by transaction date. So there will be a way to manage that. It's possible you want to report by shipping date alone to say that how much of our product were we shipping on each transaction date. Or you want to begin to track that what is the discrepancy between the transaction date and the shipping date. How long did it usually take us to ship product on an average? That may be something you want to do. So all of this will mean that you have the set of dates represented in the separate columns. So this is rule number 3 of the data management rules. Rule number 4, every unique data must have its own column. Every unique data must have its own column. What does this imply? This implies that on this data set, we have unique data. Region is unique. It's a unique data category. Market is a unique data category. It's different from store. Your model is different from line of business. Day category is different from the trade date. Because these are unique data categories, they must stay in their individual columns. We should not say now that maybe in this particular the market column should only have market related items. Your line of business should be essentially line of business. We shouldn't have a mix of line of business and models because they are different data categories. So this is what this is saying. So that we can always be sure that if we pick anything from the market column, we expect that everything there is all markets. So you need to just ensure that you verify when you are trying to put your data together, when you are transforming, ensure you verify that the column that has been designated for something only contains items related to that thing. That is all you need to do on this particular rule. So remember that every unique data category must have its own column. Number 5, you should not have, this not even should, you must not have totals or subtotals on your data. We shouldn't come here to our region, for instance, and then come to the last row and say that we want to have what the total is on our data. What this will mean is that if we already have a total value on our data sets like this for our region, for our revenue rather, and then we go on into Power BI to create our sum of revenue again, what Power BI will do for us is now to do a sum of these, and then your figures will be inflated because it will add the original values to the already computed sum that you have on your data set. So your values will be inflated. This is something you want to guard against at all costs. So the fact that you have your total here does not mean that Power Query will ignore these entire rows. These entire rows that you see here, these entire cells, all of them will come in as null. They will all come in as null. So which means that it will be counted as part of your data. And so when you go on to compute your total revenue, it will pick your total that you have already computed on your actual data. It will pick it as part of it. So which is something you don't want to do. So ensure that you don't have totals or subtotals within your data set. Rule number 6, you shouldn't have obstructions around your data. What does this imply? Obstructions around the data mean that maybe somebody comes here, for instance, maybe we have a manager that vets whatever data has been entered and just comes here and says that maybe it says verify, it puts that here that we need to verify this transaction. Why is the transaction running to 1.9? Then it comes here to say that this is a good transaction. This one, it says too low. All of these are obstructions around our data. We don't need it here. If we want to have comments as part of our data, which means for each of these rows we'll have comments. Maybe this will be better, this one, nice, this one, good. We want to have all of these comments as part of our data, then add an extra column, call it comments, and populate it downwards. If you will not be adding an extra column, don't go to the side of your data and start putting some text there. That would be wrong to do. So that would violate our data management principle, and so it will impact our reporting in a way. So let's take that out. So that is our rule number 6. We shouldn't have obstructions around our data. And the very last rule is that you must have a single row of heading. Must have a single row of heading. On this data set, this is our heading, region down to units sold. If for whatever reason I come here and I say sales data, I say sales data here, and then I start my data on this row, and then my data flies downwards. Whatever tool we want to use to analyze this would recognize the very first row as your heading. From 5 up to column 9, just like we saw on our Power Query yesterday. Because it will recognize this very first row to be the row, now begin to now tell us that no, this is not the row for our heading, and then it is this row, so we start our manipulation from there. But essentially, you need to ensure if there is a row that is above your heading that has data, you need to find a way of taking that out and then make your Power BI or Power Query recognize what actually your row is, your header row is, before you go on to analyze your data set. So these are the 7 golden rules for data management. Please, let's go to the chart, everybody. Type out the 7 rules. Let's type out the rules on the chart, everybody. If you want to say it out, that's fine too. All right, thank you, Lawali. No empty columns. Okay, interesting. Someone typed out everything. That's great. Thank you, Lawali. Thank you, Kudus. Thank you, Sadiq. Excellent. So let's put this to use now. I'll share a file with us on the chart. Let me confirm the file first. Data. I think Hassan is on the waiting room. Somebody needs to bring him in. So not this.
Oh, hey, it seems you are the host now.
You are the host. Yeah?
You mean myself?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh. Sorry, I didn't recognize that. Okay. Well, he's left already. Maybe if he comes back in, then let me make somebody co-host so that we can do this together. We can only have a host. There's no room for co-host here.
No, I think you can make Pro Ice Limited the host back. So
Okay, let me do that.
Okay.
Pro Ice Limited. Yes, I've just made you co-host, but I should still be able to share, right? You need to just on the share button, you need to there is a drop down by the share button that enables participants to share. If you just enable that, then I'll be able to share without being a host.
Okay, you can share now.
Okay, let me check that. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that. So just want to get to this file quickly. Okay, so document and data prep. Okay, I have the file opened, so I'm able to close it too. All right, so I dropped a file on the chat for us now. Okay, still sending. It's sent now, so please let's download that file. Once we have it, please let's confirm that we do. All right, thank you, Sadiq. All right, thank you, Lawali. Abikudus, do you have it? Do you have the file? All right, so now let's start with this. For the moment, yes, we can use the file that we have before us, or you can look at my screen, whichever one is convenient. Let's stay on the worksheet called 31. We have a worksheet called 31. Let's stay on that worksheet. So what I want us to do quickly is this. We have seen the 7 golden rules for data management. Look at this data, 31, against those rules and tell me which of the rules have been broken by this data set. So you look at the data set alongside this set of rules that we talked about, and then you tell me which of those rules have been broken. Please, I would like that we type out the actual rule. Rule number 1, I'm guessing no empty column, but please let's type out the actual rule there. Let's look at it carefully in the light of the explanation that we had to say which of the rules did the data set break. Still expecting some responses. Look at the data set. Which of the rules have been broken? Sorry. More responses quickly, please. Look at those, your responses. I guess Hassan just joined. Okay, no obstructions around the data. Any other one? Okay. Single row of heading. Okay, every unit data must have its own category, must have its own column. Okay. Okay, the first column should have here as header. Okay, 1 more minute to look at this, and then we will discuss or substantiate our points. Okay, so let's start with this. I'll begin with Sadiq. Sadiq, please, if you could unmute. Let's have you speak to those points that you mentioned. How are they being validated?
Okay, based on we have B, columns A, C, D, E
Yes.
are empty. Column F,
Mhm.
so the as noticed. So I feel the first column, which is the first row, should be the header, which should be like something like region. So the region should display this north central, northeast, northwest on the same column, which should be on column A downwards. So if you look at this column A also, we have something here in the rows downward. The first 2 rows are empty. So from 3 down to 18, we have year. There should be a column for year also, which should be which should be the column header from row 1 that should state year. And if we move to row 2, we have copier sales, parts, printer sales, service plan. If you go to column F downwards again, you see that we have a repeat of this same headers, which should be on the same column. I think as that of on the same row, sorry, as that of the region and the year. Then for my last observation, we have some empty rows. Down inside the data.
Okay,
which makes those? Okay, so let's say under column B, row 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, empty.
Okay. Okay. Those are your points, right, Sadiq?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much for this. Thanks a lot for that. I'll speak to this afterwards. Olawale, please let's have you quickly.
Okay, so just like the way Sadiq has mentioned, we have a lot of empty rows on column B. Then column C, we have empty rows. To column D, we have a lot of empty rows scattered around the data. That's for that. Then for the headers, we have North Central, Northeast. So I wouldn't know if, okay, definitely there will be regions or like a central locations, but I wouldn't know why they are being like segregated like that. So maybe it also affects our reporting as well if we're to report based on region or location wise. So I can't really comment more on that.
Okay.
Then for what else can I say? Okay, there are no obstructions. I can't say no obstructions. No, some rules are not how will I put it? There are some rules that are not included. Then for that single rule of heading, then the year as well, that's the column A. The first two rows, they are nothing but this should carry year as the heading. So, and that is missing. But can we categorize that as like an obstruction? So I want to ask that question as well. Yeah. But okay. I'm not sure it's an obstruction.
Okay, I'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Olawale. Over to you, Abdul.
Well, I think Sadiq and Lawale have said it all, but my own question is, can this be categorized as empty role or empty cells? That's would they be categorized as null or as an empty row?
Thank you so much for that. So every other point that Sadiq and Olawale mentioned, and so this would not pose any. These empty cells that we have here, they won't pose any issues. What this would just mean is this. Let's look at it this way. This is the amount that we sold on copier sales in the year 2000 in the region North Central. This is what this is saying. Do we agree? Do we follow with that?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and which means that for 2001 and 2002, we did not make sales on our copier sale business line in the North Central. But for the parts, we made sales. That's why this is empty, because we didn't make sales in this product line, but we made sales in this product line. This is what this is saying. But this formatting is not nice. Yes, we are right. We have double row of heading. That is not correct. We shouldn't have something like that. And then we are also right in the sense that our data does not have a unique data category. We have region across different columns. All our region must be in the same column, These business lines that we have here, they are meant to be all in the same column. And so the structure of our data should be something like this. Let me just give us this. I'll pick this for. This is what the structure of our data is meant to be. Something like this. North Central, then the copier sales, and this and this. And so we have, this is the year 2000. And then this is what we sold in each of the business lines. So I can transpose this. Where is transpose? This. Yeah, so this is what the structure should be like, such that we have our years like this. Then we have a column for our region, a column for the business line, and a column for the revenue from each of those lines. So let's see how we can resolve this in Power Query. So this is what we'll do quickly. I want us to use, I'll just close out of this file. I hope it's not saved. Let me undo whatever I've done. Okay, so I guess it's all undone. Okay, so I'll close this and I'll go to my Power BI. I want to bring in that data. Where do I go to? Somebody needs to guide me. Where do I go to? I want to connect to that data set. I've launched my Power BI file.
Get data.
Get data. Then I click on where?
The location, or we can click on Excel workbook.
Excel workbook. And so I will need to browse down to where the data is. This is data prep. I'll click on open. And now I want to connect to my data one first. And so I'll click on transform data. So everybody connect to data one. Once you are inside of Power Query Editor, please type yes on the chart. Okay, all right, thank you everybody. So now we are inside of our Power Query Editor. We still remember this interface very well. And we have our applied steps. Our applied step says that we have connected to a source, which was the Excel workbook. And there, in that Excel workbook, we have three worksheets, 31, 32, and 33. But we went on to the navigation and selected only 31. So that's what we have on the formula bar, which says that the item we connected to is the 31. And the kind of that item is a worksheet. It's not a table. So that's all we have. And if you look at what we have up to the navigation step, it is exactly what we saw on the Excel file. The first two cells on this first column is empty, not central. We have not central, not east all on row one, and we have copier sales, print parts, printer sales, and all of these on row number two. And Power Query went on to add promoted header step for us. What Power Query did was to push our row one to the header level. Power Query is thinking that that is our header, and it also went on to do the change type step. But we know that that is not our header because that is not the actual thing we should have on our header. So what we'll do is that we'll remove the change type step and the promoted header step. So everybody remove that step, the two steps, change type and promoted headers. So now we are back to how our data was on the Excel file. What I tell people and what I do, which is a quicker way to get to whatever you want to achieve. Whenever you observe that you have more than a row of heading, you have a data set and you have seen that you have more than a row of heading, the very first thing that I typically would advise that you start with is to transpose your data, turn your data around, so that eventually you have something single that you could call the header, and then you have those double or triple headers come on different columns. So let's see that quickly in action. So what we need to do if you want to transpose is to come to our transform tab. Under the transform tab, you see a transpose icon. So which means you are turning your rows to columns and your columns to your rows. So everybody click on transpose. And immediately we transpose our data, we see that our data is beginning to make some sense to us. So now we have all our regions on the same column, and we have our business lines on another column. And now we have our years on row number 1 across different columns. So for the moment, let's assume that our row number 1 is our header row, which is the row that has our years. So let's use that as the header. So we know how to do that already. Use first row as headers. So once we have that as our header,
It's not supposed to be blank.
okay,
Hello.
what's
I have my own header as the first row as the year.
I didn't get that.
For my own header, the first row I have is the year.
What do you have as your header now? Column 1, column 2?
Yeah, I have column 1, column 2, column 3.
Column 3. What do you have as row number 1?
I have the year as row number 1.
Yes. On your row number 1, what do you have there?
The year. On row number 1, the year.
Okay, so you need to push that up. Use your first row as header.
Okay.
Are we good now?
Yes. Good now.
You're good now. Okay. All right. Olawale, you were saying something, please.
Yes, I said they shouldn't appear as null. So I think the places showing null should also occupy those regions, like the North Central now. It should occupy from row 1 to row 4, I guess. Then why not it should occupy from row 5 to 8?
Thank you for that, Olawale. Abdul Kudus, Sadiq, Hassan, do we agree?
Yes,
Yes.
I think so.
Okay, all right. So because the reason why it should be that way is, remember when we were on Excel, I will try to launch my Excel very quickly back now, so that we'll look at that in Excel. And so that we can validate the reason why that is the case.
Okay, sorry, hello, tutor. Sorry, before you go.
Yes, Hassan.
Sorry, when you're talking about Excel dump, that we should be, maybe you can connect our listen to Excel dump and co. What about if we have like more than maybe like we have like 2 million rows in Excel? Can that be possible? No, maybe not only accumulate 1 million, 1 point something million, sha. But what about if you have like 2 million data? How do you do
that? So what I would advise is, go on.
So do you get what I explained?
Yes, I got it. You have a data set.
Do you get what I said?
Yes, you have a data set that runs to about 2 million of rows. And you want to push that into Excel, right? Is that correct? Is it my internet or Hassan's internet?
I think it should be Hassan's.
Okay.
We lost him.
Oh. Okay.
I think what he's trying to, I noted that question down as well. Okay. Maybe, I'm not so sure, maybe that's the same thing he's trying to ask. Like if you have a larger set of data sets, how do we identify, for us to start checking one after the other, how do we find out those 7 golden rules that, okay, maybe they're not missing, that everything is in line? I think that's what he's trying to like ask.
Okay. So now,
this is sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Hassan.
My network before. You were providing solutions that we can use.
So I'm trying to get, I just wanted to confirm first that that's what you asked. You asked that you have more than a data set that is more than the capacity of Excel.
Yes.
How do you undo it, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so it depends. One is that Excel by default will not take more than 1,048,000 rows. You'll not be able to add extra rows. That is Excel by default. So, but if it happens that you want to analyze a particular data set, engine, which is the power pivot that allows you to extend beyond what Excel can take. So if you look at my Excel here, you see that on my own tabs, I have power pivots. So this power pivot will allow you to suck in data sets that are smaller or larger than what Excel can accommodate, and you'll be able to analyze it within Excel. Do you have your question answered, Hassan?
I understand. Yes, I understand now. I understand the power pivot. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so going to, you're welcome. Going to Olawale's question. If you have a very large data set and you want to go through the data set to know what is missing or what has been violated from the golden rules of data. For instance, now, if you're talking about the single row of heading, that one very quickly you will see it. You just stay at the header level. Once you notice that you have more than a single row of heading, you see that very quickly. If you're talking about empty columns or empty rows, so what you can do is, one is if you stay anywhere at the top of a column and you do control, now I'm on column B. I'm on column B now. If I do control down arrow, you see that it stopped on 48,4841640. That's where it stopped. If I'm here on 2000 and I do control down arrow, notice it went down to the last item on that column, which is 2015. But if I do the same thing here under my own part, just observe where it will stop. It stops in the middle. Whenever you have such stoppage, it tells you that there's a space in between. And what you just need to do is go the steps downward, and then you see, okay, it's just a cell and not a complete row. So we see that it's a cell here. If I do control right arrow, you see that it didn't get to the last space because there was an empty cell after this value. So that is how we get to see that there's an empty cell or not. Once you see that there's an empty cell, you just need to go down. Sorry, they've taken power. I need to switch to this screen. So you need to just do control right arrow again. If it continues down to the last item there on that particular data set towards the right, then you know that you have no blank, no completely empty rows. But if it happens that you go up from the top, you press control down arrow, and it gets to
excuse me.
I know you can see my screen. Yes, I'll reshare now. So I'll reshare now. I was on the other screen before, but now I need to share the screen fully. So once you do control at the top now, I'm at the top, I do control down. I notice that it's broke here. So it's an implication that there is a space below. Then once I get to the space below, I just need to go to the right. Sorry. Okay, I just need to go to the right like this to see if it's completely empty left to right. So if it's not completely empty left to right, then we have seen that empty cells, they are not issues. What will be an issue is empty row, or what will be an issue is empty column. So those are validated already. The very other things that you will want to quickly look at are just if your data is very large, you just need to glance through. You are just skimming. For instance, you have a column that is called here like this. You just want to quickly go down a way to say that, okay, this is all the data that I have on this. Then the other method you can use, if your data is extremely large, like you mentioned, is to insert a pivot table on it. If I insert a pivot table on this, I insert a pivot table on this data set now, and then I pick this year column, I drop it on the rows. It will tell me all the unique values that we have here. So if there is something on this column that is not a year, I would immediately see it. If I pick this copier sales and I drop it on the rows, it tells me all the unique values here. So immediately I can see that there are blanks as well. So this might be a way to look at that again. So it's just you trying to experiment to see what are the anomalies within the data set. So by I'll take out this printer cell and I'll bring this copier cell. Then I'll come here to refresh. So once I refresh, immediately I get to see this total here. So which tells me that something is wrong on this column. So those are some of the ways to validate that you are getting some unexpected values within your data set. So I don't know if that answered your question a bit, Olawale.
Yes, that's fine. It's fine.
All right. So now I wanted us to look at something quickly just to validate that we were meant to have North Central repeated as we saw on Power Query here. So we saw that North Central was meant to be repeated, North East was meant to be repeated. So if you come here now, this is North Central. The person that entered its data most likely had assumed that the North Central here is talking about all these line items, and the Northeast here is for all these line items, and the same thing progresses to the right. So which means that normally what we should have here that is blank is to have our North Central repeated to say that this is North Central copier sales, North Central for parts, North Central for printer sales, North Central for service plan, and like that. And the same thing should happen for our Northeast. That is what we should have normally. So if that is the case, then what we need to do is to find a button that can allow us to have whatever is above repeated where we have the null values. And we have a button, perfect button that would allow us to do that in Power Query. So everybody go to your transform tab again. On your transform tab, look for a button here that can allow you to do that. What you want to do is replicate what is above and push it down. It's just in this range, this any column group. You see a button there that can allow us to do that. Please look, let's look for it quickly. Anybody else see it?
Could it be replaced values?
No, null is not a value, really. It's empty, so we are not replacing.
Okay.
You are close to it.
It's fill. Is it fill?
Fill, excellent. So now, if you look at fill has two options. If you click on the drop down, so what exactly are we doing? Are we filling down or up?
We are filling down.
Perfect. So everybody, let's do that. Click on the column name, then you go to fill, then you fill down. Okay. So I've done something else on my data, that's why. Let me go back to the Excel that I opened. Go to error, change type. When did I change type? Okay. So we have filled down now. So our data is looking slightly neat, but there is one problem here. What is that problem? Everybody look at the data and let's figure out. What is the remaining problem now?
We still have null in some other cells.
Okay. Aside from that, so for us, most likely to be column 2. So what again, look at it. We mentioned that our unique data category must have its own column. But what we can see across our columns, after column 1, column 2, what can we see?
Yeah.
Years across the column. So all our years are meant to be in a single column. In a single column. And then against it, we now have each of these values that we can see here. So what we'll do is this. We have a command in Power Query. What we can see at the moment is a summarized form of this data to say that we have, for those of us that we have used pivot tables before, this is how pivot tables would represent our data if we put our years on the column. So it just splits it across the column and tells us the values, individual values based on these years. So we want to do the reverse, and we have a command that would allow us to do that in Power Query. It is called unpivot. Normally this is pivoted, but we want to unpivot it, which means that we want to return this back to the actual way it's meant to be. So what we'll do is, because our column 1 is fine, column 2 is also fine, what we want to deal with is from 2000 down to whatever the last one is. That's what we want to deal with. So how we would address that is this. Still under the transform tab, you'll say on pivot columns. Then we need to select column 1, hold down your control key and select column 2. Select column 1, hold down control key and select column 2. Then you come here to on pivot columns. We have 3 options there. Which of the options are we meant to use? Remember that we have selected column 1 and column 2. So which option should we use?
On pivot other columns.
On pivot order columns. Perfect. So because it's other columns that we want to deal with. So let's click on that, everybody, on pivot order columns. Once you do that, confirm how many columns you have now.
4.
Okay. 4 columns. So we have column 1, column 2, attribute and value, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So before we go on, I want us to do something. Just click on the previous step before this. Whatever your previous step was, maybe fill down, it should be filled down for you. Click on that.